Good morning, everyone. Welcome, Tansei. My name is Darlene Brander. I'm a Red Earth Cree First Nation member, and I'm also the CEO of Wanuskewin Heritage Park. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all here today on this momentous occasion. Today we're broadcasting live from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, in the heart of Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay homage to the many nations who have come here, the Cree, the Nakota, Dakota, Lakota, Dene, and Saulteaux, amongst many. For over 6,400 years, people have gathered here at this beautiful sacred site. We have come here for ceremony, for trade, for hunting, and I'm proud to say, as an Indigenous woman, our ancestors have followed the bison to the site and called Opemihow Valley home for many, many generations. Today, the park continues this tradition as being a central meeting place and a gathering place, welcoming families, tourists, students to immerse themselves in the beauty and tradition of the Northern Plains Indigenous cultures. Over the past 32 years, we have welcomed many elders, knowledge keepers, chiefs, ministers, ambassadors, high commissioners, and even members of the royal family. And we have been honored and humbled to do so. Today, however, we are making history. Today, we welcome the Prime Minister of Canada. But before we get to the Prime Minister, I just want to make a note that you should know that Wanuskewin was born out of our community, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people working together to create this place, an environment for learning, a place where pride in self is fostered, a place where stereotypes are destroyed, a place where truth-telling happens, a place where reconciliation happens. We're so proud of the work that we have, and we're so proud of our partners like the federal government, and especially as we move towards UNESCO World Heritage designation, the first in Saskatchewan. And with that, I want to welcome Minister Dan Vandal, Minister of Northern Affairs.
Thank you so much. Hello everybody, good morning. Bonjour tout le monde, c'est un plaisir d'être à Saskatchewan encore. I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered on Treaty 6 territory and homeland of the Métis Nation. Prime Minister, Minister Ian, welcome back to the prairies. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Wanuskewin Heritage Museum for hosting us here today. I'd like to acknowledge Darlene Brander. She is Wanuskewin's CEO. Darlene is a member of the Red Earth Cree First Nation and actually worked at Wanuskewin many, many years ago as an Indigenous ambassador, awareness education manager, I should say. It's great to see you again, Darlene, and thank you for your work here at Wanuskewin and for everything you do for Indigenous peoples in Saskatchewan and in Canada. Just last month, I was here in Saskatoon and had the chance to meet with Indigenous leaders from the Athabasca region, Athabasca Basin. Around the table were chiefs, mayors, councillors, and other leaders. They each shared with me the many challenges they face on a day-to-day basis, and they also shared with me opportunities. But there was one common theme, and that is the need to invest in Indigenous communities, specifically on healthcare, on housing, on education, and the massive, massive infrastructure and housing deficit. And since 2015, we've invested historic amounts across Canada. But the legacy of colonialism has created enduring infrastructure and housing deficits gaps all across Canada in Indigenous communities. And since 2015, we have made reconciliation an absolute priority for our government. We've made a lot of progress. The progress is real, but there is so much more work to do. So to share with you how Budget 24 is making the necessary investments to bolster Indigenous communities in their diligent efforts to realize a better future, I'd like to introduce Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Merci Dan, je suis très content d'être ici aujourd'hui avec toi et avec Marci à Saskatoon. I'm pleased to be here on Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis. Thank you, Darlene, for your welcome and for showing us this extraordinary place, the Wanuskewin Heritage Museum, and thank you also for the work you and your entire team do to tell the story of this land and its First Peoples. Chief Bear, Darcy, it's always a pleasure to be here with you, and it's good to be here with Riel, the President and CEO of the Saskatchewan Indian Institute of Technologies. A little earlier, Riel and Darcy and I had the pleasure of meeting inspiring students who are learning about robotics, virtual care, technology, and so many other innovative things that are making them the leaders of today and tomorrow for right here in their community, but also to impact communities across the country. SIIT is a First Nations governed educational institution that gives people the tools they need to succeed in an environment where they feel supported. This is what Budget 24 is all about, making sure everyone has what they need to succeed. We're investing in housing, technology, healthcare, childcare, small businesses, and school food. Notre budget cette année, c'est un plan pour donner une chance équitable à tout le monde, y compris les peuples autochtones, à réussir. Aujourd'hui, on est ici pour souligner nos mesures qui vont soutenir les communautés des Premières Nations, des Métis et des Inuits partout au pays, des mesures pour les soins de santé, l'éducation, le logement et des opportunités économiques. So of all those, let's start with healthcare. Everyone in this country deserves to have equitable, safe, and culturally appropriate healthcare. We know that remote communities face even greater challenges when it comes to accessing care. So we need to do more to fix this. This is why we will build and renovate more health centres on reserve with an investment of over $390 million. This funding will also improve the safety of primary care workers in remote and isolated First Nations communities. Riel, we're excited to be here today announcing funding to support the virtual health hub led by SIIT with an investment of $21 million. The health gap that exists between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples is unacceptable, and we'll be there to support initiatives that will close it, like the virtual health hub that will be deployed at Whitecap Dakota First Nation. Of course, what we're announcing today is on top of the other investments we're making in healthcare across the country, including with a strong focus on mental health supports. A big part of our work to close gaps in healthcare and in other areas is education. We will increase access to post-secondary education with an investment of nearly $243 million. Since 2016, there's been close to a 50% increase of Indigenous peoples who have a post-secondary degree. For First Nations, that number is now over 60%. That means that more people are now employed in their communities, providing crucial services at home and in cities throughout the country. Le soutien qu'on apporte à la prochaine génération d'étudiants autochtones pour les études universitaires, collégiales ou postsecondaires va contribuer à un avenir plus prometteur, pas seulement pour les peuples autochtones, mais pour tous. For everyone to succeed, we need more housing as well, right across the country, including and especially in Indigenous communities. So to support the building of homes and infrastructure in First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities, we'll invest over $1 billion. And that's on top of the $5 billion for housing and infrastructure that will go directly to your communities this year. On va aider à construire des logements, mais aussi les infrastructures dont les communautés ont besoin. Par exemple, ça prend des usines de traitement des eaux et des routes fiables vers les communautés éloignées pour pouvoir bâtir plus de logements. Et c'est exactement ce qu'on va aider à construire. And finally, I want to talk about what we're doing to create jobs and prosperity. Indigenous peoples have always been innovators, from trading and trapping to establishing local, regional, or national organizations to bring in further investments to their communities. Indigenous nations need to be able to share in the benefits of natural resource and energy projects in their territories and on their own terms. We know, unfortunately, there are fewer options for securing capital, leading to increased borrowing rates that create a barrier to equity investment. Well, we're going to change that with the new Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. This program will offer up to $5 billion in loan guarantees to make sure Indigenous communities can share in the benefits of natural resource and energy projects in their territories. Le programme de garantie de prêt pour les Autochtones va appuyer sur leurs priorités et créer de nouvelles opportunités économiques. C'est un programme qui va aider à réduire le nombre de personnes qui vivent dans des ménages à faible revenu, des résultats qui vont s'ajouter aux améliorations qu'on voit depuis 2015. Et en plus de ça, on va investir 388 millions de dollars pour soutenir les entrepreneurs autochtones et le tourisme et pour créer des opportunités dans le domaine de l'énergie propre. Des bons emplois et une chance équitable de réussir pour tout le monde, c'est ça notre plan. Everyone deserves a fair chance to succeed. And when Indigenous peoples succeed, it means that Canada succeeds. Reconciliation will always be at the forefront of everything we do, including in this budget. So when Conservative politicians say they'll vote against this budget, that's what they'll be voting against. They'll vote against our plan to build homes, to invest in health care and education, and to provide child care and school food, and to create jobs and opportunities for Indigenous peoples and for all Canadians. Not only will they vote against the budget, but they want to cut the programs and supports people rely on. That's not our government's vision for a better future. We'll keep working hard every day to bring back fairness for every generation. Thank you. Merci all. I'm very happy now to pass it over to Minister Ian. Marci.
Prime Minister, thank you so much. Chief Barrett, it's great to be with you. President Bellegarde, Dan, always good to see you, friend. Darlene, so nice to meet you. And great to see students over here on this side and the team from SIIT. I'm so glad that you're here with us. So, Prime Minister, I want to start with this and say that as a former educator, and I say this truly believing that once an educator, always an educator, and as Canada's first Minister of Youth, you know, and all of us here know, how important education is. Education is the great equalizer. It can level the playing field. It makes things fair. Consider where we are right now. And Darlene laid it out so well. A sacred site, a gathering place for thousands of years. Its connection to land, its connection to culture, linking past to present. Wanuskewin CEO Darlene Brander, your team, just want to thank you for keeping the history of this space alive. Thank you for teaching and leading so very well. Tout ce que vous faites ne passe pas inaperçu. Leadership, teaching. Earlier at the Saskatchewan Indian Institute of Technology, or SIIT, we had a tour, and it was amazing. It featured cutting-edge, innovative technology, things like remote presence robotics, which means patients can be served from a distance, or an AI-driven ultrasonography robot, which means that a woman in a remote community doesn't have to leave or travel a distance to get the medical attention she needs. She can stay in her community with support around her, with support with her. So an example was given earlier, and it was an example about Lalache, Saskatchewan. Lalache being in a lockdown during the pandemic, and women still being able to get ultrasounds because of this technology, because of the technology at SIIT. That's what students are learning there. They're putting new innovative skills into action. And that's why this virtual healthcare hub is so important and why supporting the plan to make it a reality is vital. So I'm going to call out Trinity for a second. Trinity showed us this morning this really amazing tool. She called it a handle, and she made it with a 3D printer. And she made it because her dad has challenges holding on to things, challenges with his hands. So she made this 3D printer grip that could hold like this, but a pen was a kind of affixed to it. So the pen could then be used, because it was affixed to that handle, to write. So it enabled her dad to write. This is the kind of things that are going on there. She said, my dad's got issues, and I'm going to fix it. My dad's got challenges, I'm going to fix it, and maybe help a lot of other people along the way. Can I just say we need a whole lot more Trinities, a whole lot more. The numbers are stark, though. As of last year, StatsCan says 37% of Indigenous youth are less likely to attend post-secondary programs, and that's compared to 72% of their non-Indigenous counterparts. So we've got some work to do. The world is ever-changing, and quickly. Tech is reaching new heights, brand new heights. The leaders at SIIT know this all too well. So President Bellegarde and Professor Mendez, your teams, thank you for every single thing that you do. Your students are prepared to meet this moment because that is fair. I am pleased now to pass the mic to President Bellegarde.
Good morning. And before I begin, thank you, Darlene, for hosting us. And I too want to acknowledge, as I look out the window, Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis. And we were very humbled and we were very honored to host the Prime Minister this morning at SIIT, along with Minister Yen and Minister Vandal. And we were very humbled that he spent the time to meet with our learners, meet with our learning community, and see what's happening at SIIT and what future looks like in terms of Indigenous-led innovation. Our innovation collective, our Maker Lodge, has been in existence for 3 years, and it would not have been possible without the investments from the federal government. During those 3 years, we invested over 1,000 hours of training and workshops, but 25 Indigenous-led businesses were started in those 3 years. So it just shows you what strategic investments in Indigenous communities and Indigenous learners can do and how powerful it can be. Our Mobile Maker Lodge also has traveled over 59 different communities in Saskatchewan. So we're bringing innovation, we're bringing technology to young people in the communities, building an innovation ecosystem here in Saskatchewan that's Indigenous-led. We continue to be guided by our First Nation leaders, the 16 chiefs that sit on our Board of Governors. And we just signed a new strategic vision, and that vision is called Leaders of Change. At SIT, we believe we can be leaders in Indigenous education in Canada, whether it's Indigenous-led curriculum or it's actually world-class wraparound supports to support a learner in the classroom and outside the classroom. So we're very proud of our innovation agenda. We're very proud to be leaders in the investments that were being made. And now with the Virtual Health Hub, SIT is going to be able to train Indigenous people to serve their communities in the healthcare profession. So on behalf of the 2,500 students, the over 60,000 alumni in Saskatchewan, our Board of Governors, I can't thank the federal government enough for their investments in our community. And Prime Minister, again, we were so humbled to have you on our campus, and we just look forward to continuing to be leaders and moving forward on innovation in healthcare here in Saskatchewan.
Komitakiapi, apetik de westedo. Chiteweste wastan the pet chuzapi, wakamani hamakiapido. I want to first of all welcome, of course, Prime Minister to Treaty 6 territory, but also Homeland Métis, but also, Prime Minister, we talked about an apology coming to the Dakota Nations this year, and we have to make that a reality, because we were, like every other First Nation, occupied both sides of the border, and many of them signed treaties here in Canada, but we have not yet. So we got to make that happen. We got to make that an opportunity. And Minister Vandal, Minister Yen, welcome as well. Of course, Riel and Darlene, thanks for hosting us. But I look at the work we've done, and as SIT, as Riel said, we have 2,500 students in our campus, et cetera, but promoting post-secondary education is so very important for First Nations people. You know, investing in our #1 resource is our people, and that's what we have to invest in. And I'm so glad that the Prime Minister and his government realizes that we have to invest in our people and give them opportunity to make change and make a difference, not just for themselves, but for all of our people right across Canada, the country. I want to thank Dr. Mendez. I told Riel Bellegarde, when I first met Dr. Mendez, I said, this guy is a winner. I met this guy for a reason, and I told Riel, I said, when we're looking at building this International Indigenous Health Research Center, I said, no. I said, this guy is real, and we have to meet with him. And so we met with Dr. Mendez, and now we have this virtual health hub that's going to basically change public health care. We're not talking about private health care. This is public health care, but making it more efficient and effective for all Canadians. And I'll give you an example. Dr. Mendez, the Park Ridge Care Home Centre here in Saskatoon, has a pilot project there. And they would have sent 56 people to emergency room. But because of the technology we have, they only sent 8 people to the emergency room. That is the difference we're talking about. We see the demand for health care, all Canadians right across the country. We look at the northern people, and even the fact that the infant mortality rates are so high. But why? Well, because there's no ultrasonography up there. And for a woman to leave northern Canada and to come into Saskatoon, 3 days, and they can't even bring their partner with them. The experience we talked about this morning, Prime Minister, about you and your wife seeing your children getting before they were born, getting that ultrasound. That's what we're talking about. How can you not experience that with your partner? He's not allowed to be on the flight with you. So we've changed all of that. Now they can actually have that experience and celebrate together. So these are the things we're doing. The virtual health hub, the fact we have our first cohort coming this year. The team we have here today, you know, I'm so proud of them. We're making a difference, and we're going to change the world. We're going to change how healthcare is going to be delivered right across, not just Canada, but across the globe. And that's what makes me excited about this whole project. And I'm glad it's going to be also Indigenous-led. You look at the systematic racism inside the healthcare system, and here this is all Indigenous-led. We're not just going to change the healthcare outcomes for Indigenous communities, but for non-Indigenous communities as well. And that's what we're going to do. And we're doing it together. And I'm so proud, Prime Minister, that you're here today to announce this project, the Virtual Health Hub. It is important to us. And I also got to give a shout out to the province as well, Minister Hendley and Premier Moe, because they have been on side with us, Riel, right from day one, and they have been on side with this project, and they're putting in $12 million. And we'll talk about the federal figure later. But anyway, this is a great day today. Anyways, I just want to again thank all of you for being here. It's a great day, and again, thank all the team. Piramia, thank you.
We will now start the press conference. Nous allons maintenant commencer avec la conférence de presse. First question goes to Kelly Malone, Canadian Press.
What do you have to say to your own former Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, who was and remains vocally opposed to the changes to the capital gains inclusion rate?
This budget is focused on fairness. Reality is, for far too many young people, for far too many millennial families or Gen Zers, the dream of home ownership is getting further and further away every year, no matter how hard they work, no matter the side hustles they pull together. Rent is taking up a huger and huger part of their monthly budget. And the idea of setting aside to be able to save up for a down payment or eventually being able to get a mortgage seems further and further out of reach. That's why with this budget, we're bringing back fairness in the system for young people. And we're doing it by asking people who are the absolute wealthiest in this country to contribute a little bit more. I understand for some people this may cost more if they sell a cottage or a secondary residence. But young people can't buy their primary residences yet. That's why we're moving forward with initiatives that are focused on making the system work better for young people. Because the promise of this country has always been that every generation could succeed even better by building on the hard work of previous generations. But young people today don't have, no matter how hard they work, the same opportunities that their parents and their grandparents and previous generations could take for granted as just coming in this country. That's why we're doing something bold to change the math for young people. It means investing massively in new supply of housing, which, yes, building more affordable homes, building more affordable rental buildings, but also doing things like saying if a young person is spending $2,000 a month on rent, the fact that they pay it on time every month, that should count towards building a credit score so they can eventually go to the bank and say, look, I'm a reliable payer of my bills. You can give me a mortgage, and a better mortgage than you'd otherwise be able to give me. These are the kinds of things that changes the system. And I understand there are those who've been very, very successful off the way the system used to be, who don't want to see the system changed. But this is about intergenerational fairness. It's also about making sure our economy succeeds into the future. Young people right now make up the largest part of our workforce, and if they don't see paths to success, it's the entire economy that suffers. So we're going to stay focused on building a fair economy for every generation.
Follow-up.
What advice would you give Canadians who want to show public solidarity with Palestinians, but fear being associated with the sort of rhetoric that has been called hateful, which was expressed at the protests Saturday in Ottawa?
Look, it's really, really important that Canadians know that they are free to express themselves, free to protest, to make sure that they are highlighting things they believe in or things that they are concerned about. That is a right that Canadians need to always see defended, and this government always will. However, we have laws against hate speech, against incitement to violence, and we expect police to do their jobs and make sure those laws are enforced. Because fundamentally, including all the rights to protest, all the rights to free speech, nobody should feel unsafe in their communities, in their community schools, in their places of worship, and that's something we will continue to stand for.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Okay. Je pense que c'est important de souligner tout d'abord que la liberté d'expression, la liberté de manifester pour partager ses préoccupations, son désaccord avec un gouvernement, avec des enjeux internationaux, est essentielle pour la liberté de notre démocratie. Les gens doivent se sentir libres de parler, de partager leurs préoccupations. En même temps, on a des lois contre l'incitation à la haine, l'incitation à la violence. Et par rapport à ça, on s'attend à ce que nos services de police s'assurent que la loi soit suivie. Parce qu'au fond, ce qu'on doit s'assurer, c'est que tout le monde se sent en sécurité dans leur communauté, dans leur lieu de culte, dans leur quartier.
Prochaine question.
Dans le cadre de votre promesse de rachat des armes à feu de type militaire, que pensez-vous du fait que Post Canada, qui livre donc déjà les armes à feu, refuse de les récupérer?
Tout d'abord, on a pris cet engagement parce que des armes de style assaut, des armes de style militaire, n'ont pas leur place au Canada. On ne fait pas de chasse avec un AR-15. Et on ne devrait pas non plus. Et donc, depuis 4 ans déjà, ces armes d'assaut sont illégales au Canada. C'est illégal de les utiliser, de les acheter, de les donner, de les vendre. Et ça fait depuis 2020 qu'on a fait ça. Mais par désir d'être équitable, ceux qui ont acheté ces armes il y a longtemps de façon tout à fait légale devraient pouvoir être remboursés pour cette arme qui est maintenant absolument inutile. Donc, on est en train de regarder et de travailler avec différents partenaires, dont différents services de courriel, différentes institutions, pour pouvoir s'assurer que ces gens qui ont ces armes-là soient récompensés, soient compensés pour cette arme qu'ils ne peuvent plus utiliser. I think it's really important to remember where we are. For 4 years now in this country, it has been illegal to buy, sell, use, or give a military-style, assault-style weapon in this country. That's 4 years that we have said it's illegal to use the kind of weapon that was built for the battlefield, not for hunting. We did that. That's the situation right now, right across the country. However, the people who legally and legitimately purchased those weapons before we brought in the ban on assault-style weapons now have something that they spent good money on that they can no longer use in any way, shape, or form. So as a government, we're saying, no, we're willing to compensate you for that, and we're working out the details on that compensation. That's what this is about. The ban on assault-style weapons is in place, has been in place for 4 years, despite the fact that the Conservative Party has said if they form government, they're likely to bring back the legality of assault-style weapons. We are going to do everything to make sure they remain illegal and that people be fairly compensated for something they bought back when it was perfectly legal to do so. And we'll work with a broad range of partners.
Suivi.
Est-ce qu'à ce stade, votre programme est menacé, ce programme?
Encore une fois, le cœur du programme, ça a été de bannir les armes de style assaut. On n'a plus le droit de les utiliser au Canada. Ça, c'est ce qu'on a fait en tant que gouvernement. On est en train de créer un programme pour pouvoir compenser ceux qui ont acheté ces armes de façon légale. Et je sais que ces gens-là sont peut-être très impatients d'avoir de l'argent pour qu'ils puissent aller s'acheter un nouveau fusil de chasse ou une arme parfaitement légale qu'ils vont pouvoir utiliser. Et on a hâte de pouvoir les compenser. On travaille avec des partenaires pour pouvoir le faire.
Next question.
Some Indigenous groups raised concerns following last week's budget that it was not enough to close the Indigenous infrastructure gap that the government had promised to close by 2030. With a $9 billion investment, some estimates saying it could be in the $400 billion range to close the gap. At this point, do you think that goal can be achievable by 2030? And if so, what do you say to groups who are concerned that it may not happen?
Oh, we know there is an awful lot more to do. Reconciliation is going to be the job of decades, if not generations. But there is also real urgency to close the gaps as quickly as possible on housing, on education, on healthcare. These are on opportunities for investment and economic activities. And that's why we have invested tens of billions of dollars more than any previous government in Indigenous reconciliation, in economic partnerships, in opportunities for people in Indigenous communities to thrive and succeed just like everyone else in this country. Yes, we put forward $9 billion in investments in housing, in education, in economic reconciliation, in healthcare. But there's always going to be more to do for the coming years, and we're going to continue to step up in the real partnership that is at the heart of reconciliation.
Follow-up.
No follow-up.
The Canadian Medical Association says the proposed changes to the capital gains taxation will affect doctors' retirement savings, and in turn it could affect recruitment and retention of physicians. Are you willing to make changes or exceptions for doctors?
Someone making capital gains has to make more than $250,000 in capital gain profits to start to see the new changes of inclusion from 50% of capital gains to 2/3 of capital claims being included in their tax rates. We just don't think it's right that a student or an electrician or a teacher be paying taxes on 100% of their income, while others have the opportunities to use accountants and pay taxes on only 50% of that income. This is about fairness. This is about the fact that in order for people to succeed across this economy at all generations, we need young people to succeed. We need young people to be able to buy homes in the coming years. We need young people to be confident of the future that's going to have opportunities for them to build a family and build a future the way they want to. So yes, we are asking the most successful in this country to do a little bit more to make sure that everyone can see themselves in the success of this country. And that's something that it bewilders me a little bit that the Conservative Party is standing against. It was very clear over the weekend that they are not in favor of asking the wealthiest to pay a little bit more to create success for young people. I think that's wrong. Because the one thing that matters most to all Canadians, regardless of where you live in, regardless of what your background is, regardless of your approach or your abilities in life, people expect this country to be fair. And it's fair to ask those who've succeeded extraordinarily well to be there to make sure that a lot more people have the opportunity to succeed in the coming years through their hard work.
Next question.
The parliamentary budget officer has said that there could be some collateral damage from this policy, like older Canadians who have an investment property as a pension. What do you say to those who will be taxed at a higher rate when they sell that home, which was supposed to be their nest egg?
We know that, well, first of all, very clearly, this change to capital gains does not affect anyone selling their primary residence. That is extremely important to know. This applies to people who have investments that are making more than $250,000 in a given year. So it is generous to make sure that people do get returns on their investments. It's just instead of getting taxed on 50% of their capital gains, they'll now get taxed on 2/3 of their capital gains. But at a time when young people have started to give up on the dream of eventually ever being able to own a home, it was really important to rebalance the situation. It was really important to make sure that young people can see that all the hard work they're doing is going to build them a better life, an opportunity for the future, an ability to buy a home in the community that they work in. Too many nurses, carpenters, police officers, and teachers have to live far outside of our big cities to commute into the big cities to teach, to work, to serve there. These are things we're turning on, including with ambitious programs like the Canada Builds program, with the Housing Accelerator, with investments in infrastructure to build the wastewater and various housing infrastructure that will allow for more housing to get built. These are all things we're doing to build that strong future for young people, and I think it's only fair that those who've been most successful in the system be able to contribute a little bit more.
Next question.
Many organizations in Saskatchewan and local politicians are saying housing, addictions, mental health are requiring all levels of government to address. I'm kind of struggling to see a difference from previous funding investments compared to Budget 2024 measures. So how will the federal government ensure these investments make a true impact on Saskatchewan, seeing as our homelessness population, mental health, and drug addictions are at an all-time high?
Well, we just signed a historic agreement with Saskatchewan a number of weeks ago on healthcare, including addressing mental health and addictions. Last year, we put forward $200 billion in investments on healthcare over the next 10 years, and we're working with provinces across the country to make sure that that money flows where it's most needed. So that was last year's investments that, of course, roll out this year and over the next 9 years. So that's already significant supports. On top of that, this year, significant investments in the budget to combating homelessness and to making sure there's opportunities for housing people who are dealing with a range of issues, whether it's mental health issues, addiction issues, or just the intergenerational trauma that so many descendants of residential school survivors are struggling with every single day. These are investments that we're busy making in partnership with provinces and municipalities to do that. But we're going to continue to push for more ambition, for more investment from all orders of government, because as much as the federal government can do, we can't do it alone, which is why we're encouraging provinces like Saskatchewan and municipalities to look for ways to unlock more public lands, to build more homes, particularly supportive housing for people who have particular needs, and make sure that affordable housing stock is increased so everyone can see themselves in secure long-term housing.
Next question.
What do you say to farm families because of the capital gains rate going up? What do you say to farm families who are now facing a bigger tax bill trying to pass down the family farm to their children?
We made a number of changes over the past years to make it easier for farm families to pass along their farms to next generations. At one point, it was easier and less expensive to sell your farm to a perfect stranger than to pass it on to a son or daughter, and that was wrong. That's why we actually made those changes a number of years ago, and we're going to continue to make sure that it is fair, because fairness is at the heart of this budget and our approach to government, and we're going to be there to support farm families as they do the extraordinarily essential work of putting food on tables of Canadians right across the country, and indeed increasingly feeding the world. Okay. Nous allons toujours s'occuper des familles en agriculture. Nous reconnaissons à quel point il y a des défis particuliers aux familles qui livrent la nourriture pour le pays et de plus en plus pour le monde, et on va être là pour travailler avec eux.
Last question.
You were here in January of last year at Vital Metals, and back again this year. Last year, you did not have a chance to meet with Premier Scott Moe, and this year there's no plan to meet with him again. I know he's been wanting to meet with you to speak about the carbon tax. So why no meeting this time around?
As we always do, we let the Premier's office know I was coming to town, and they said that's good. We don't need a meeting right now, or they weren't able to organize a meeting right now. That's fine. I'm always happy to talk about the fact that we're putting a price on pollution right across the country that puts more money back in the pockets of families in Saskatchewan. 8 out of 10 families across the country in regions where we've put in the price on pollution actually do better off with the price on pollution, because we price pollution and then we send the Canada carbon rebate checks to families across those jurisdictions, and low-income and middle-income families almost entirely do better off. It's $1,800 this year for families in Saskatchewan, a family of 4 in Saskatchewan, which is more than the cost of the price on pollution that we've put in. So this is a way of both fighting climate change, fighting the droughts and forest fires that are more and more regular because of extreme weather events linked to climate change, but also putting more money in families' pockets with a check that just last arrived on April 15th last week, that is helping families with the costs of everything from food or fuel to rent, whatever it is that they're spending on. That money shows up from the federal government. And I will add, despite the disagreement I have with the provincial government here in Saskatchewan on them not wanting to pay the federal government what is owed, the Canada carbon rebate checks going to families in Saskatchewan will not be impacted by the government of Saskatchewan's decision. We're going to continue to deliver the Canada carbon rebate to families right across Saskatchewan, despite the fact that Premier Moe is not sending that money to Ottawa right now. Canada Revenue Agency has ways of ensuring that money that is owed to them is eventually collected, and we have faith in the rigorous quasi-judicial proceedings that the Canada Revenue Agency uses. Okay. Je veux encore une fois souligner à quel point d'avoir mis un prix sur la pollution qui redonne plus d'argent aux familles moyennes à travers le pays. Et la façon est de lutter contre les changements climatiques et les impacts néfastes des événements météorologiques extrêmes qui sont de plus en plus communs, mais aussi pour aider les familles avec le coût de la vie à un moment où chaque dollar peut aider. Les familles en Saskatchewan, une famille de 4 va recevoir 1 800 $ cette année. Le dernier chèque de la remise canadienne sur le carbone a été livré juste la semaine passée, le 15 avril. Et ça fait une vraie différence dans la famille des Canadiens. Et je veux vous assurer que malgré le différend actuel avec le gouvernement du Saskatchewan où le premier ministre Moe ne veut pas envoyer l'argent dû à Ottawa, nous allons continuer d'être là pour les familles en Saskatchewan. Nous allons continuer de livrer la remise canadienne sur le carbone aux familles en Saskatchewan parce qu'on sait que les coûts des changements climatiques sont réels pour tous. On va continuer d'être là pour les gens à Saskatchewan, même si le gouvernement de Scott Moe veut créer de la chicane.
Ceci conclut la conférence de presse. Merci tout le monde.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Bonne journée.